You weren't born to live inside someone else's design. From the start, the world programmed you, what to believe, what to fear, what to chase. But the moment you questioned it, the illusion cracked. You realized reality isn't something that happens to you, it's something that responds to you. Your thoughts became blueprints. Your emotions became signals. The same mind that once followed began to lead. You stopped chasing outcomes and started creating them. You learned that awareness doesn't just change perception, it rewrites existence. This isn't about escaping the system. It's about mastering your own code. Because once you understand the mind's power to shape reality, nothing outside you holds control anymore. The program ends here, and your creation begins. Reality is not built from matter. It's built from meaning. Every experience, every perception, every fact you live by is constructed from what you believe to be true. The world doesn't show you what's real. It shows you what you're ready to recognize. Your beliefs are the blueprint. Your thoughts are the design, and your awareness is the architect. Before anything becomes physical, it must first exist as an accepted possibility in your mind. Belief is the quiet engineer of destiny. It works behind every decision you make, filtering information, shaping emotions, and guiding reactions. You think you're responding to the world, but in truth, you're responding to the version of it your beliefs allow you to see. Two people can live the same moment and experience two completely different realities, not because the world changed, but because their internal architecture did. The structure of belief is invisible but absolute. It operates like a mental operating system, processing millions of signals each day and deciding which ones matter. When a belief becomes solid, it builds walls that define what's possible and what's not. Those walls feel like truth, but they're really perception hardened by repetition. The mind defends them, even when they limit you. Every belief begins as a choice, then becomes a habit, and finally turns into identity. Once identity takes hold, you stop questioning its foundation. You start saying, "That's just who I am." But that statement isn't self-awareness, it's self-hypnosis. The architecture of belief doesn't just shape how you see the world, it decides which version of yourself you're allowed to meet. Most people inherit their mental architecture without knowing it. Parents, teachers, media, all play the role of unconscious architects. They pass down fears disguised as logic and limitations disguised as wisdom. You begin living in a mental house you never designed, confusing comfort with truth. The first step to awakening isn't learning new ideas, it's identifying which beliefs you didn't choose. Your beliefs don't just define your boundaries, they define your energy. Every thought carries vibration, and belief is the frequency that locks it in place. When your beliefs vibrate in fear, life mirrors uncertainty. When they align with trust, life reflects flow. You attract experiences that confirm what you already believe, because your energy tells the universe what to deliver. The architecture of belief explains why change feels so difficult. You can't build a new reality on top of old foundations. You must first dismantle the structures that no longer support your expansion. That's why awareness can feel painful. It shakes the mental walls you've mistaken for safety. But those cracks are necessary. They're the spaces where light enters. Your outer world is a mirror of your inner architecture. If chaos surrounds you, it's not punishment, it's feedback. Life isn't attacking you, it's reflecting you. Every challenge is a chance to observe what belief is being tested. When you stop resisting feedback and start studying it, reality becomes your greatest teacher. Belief doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. The quiet assumptions you never notice often create the strongest outcomes. I'm not ready. people can't be trusted. Money is hard to make. These sentences become invisible codes in your mental system. You don't even have to say them. Your energy already broadcasts them. Awareness begins when you finally catch yourself in those patterns. Changing belief isn't about forcing new thoughts. It's about upgrading the system that holds them. You don't fight the old architecture. You outgrow it. Awareness is the demolition process, and new belief is construction. The more consciously you design what you believe, the more intentionally life begins to build around it. Every major transformation starts with a single mental redesign. When you change the foundation of how you interpret experience, everything connected to it begins to shift. Relationships, habits, opportunities. They all rearrange themselves to match your new vibration. Belief is the gravity that pulls reality into shape. The architecture of belief doesn't live in the mind alone. It exists in the body. Every emotion is evidence of what you've accepted as true. Fear tightens the body because it resists expansion. Peace relaxes it because it aligns with understanding. When your body and mind hold the same belief, manifestation accelerates. Energy no longer conflicts with intention. Your mind is both architect and tenant. It designs the rooms it lives in, decorating them with thoughts and memories. Some rooms are bright, filled with gratitude and flow. Others are dim, echoing with doubt and resistance. The more self-aware you become, the easier it is to open new doors within yourself, doors that lead to realities you didn't know existed. The power of belief lies in its invisibility. You can't see it, but it directs everything you do. It determines what you expect, and expectations are self-fulfilling prophecies. When you expect loss, you subconsciously move toward it. When you expect expansion, you start noticing doors that others miss. Belief isn't just mindset, it's momentum. The most dangerous beliefs are the ones that sound logical but feel limiting. Phrases like "that's just how life works," or "people like me never get that far," keep countless minds in invisible prisons. Breaking those patterns isn't rebellion, it's renewal. The universe doesn't resist your growth, your conditioning does. The architecture of belief can't be destroyed by doubt, it's rebuilt through awareness. When you question a belief, you reclaim authority from the system that installed it. The moment you ask, "Why do I think that?" you begin to separate your identity from your programming. That separation is the birth of self-creation. You don't need to believe everything your mind tells you. Thoughts are temporary. Awareness is eternal. When you start choosing which beliefs deserve your attention, you regain creative power. The conscious mind becomes the architect again, instead of the occupant of old blueprints. That's where transformation starts, in choice, not chance. Reality bends where attention goes. Every belief you reinforce strengthens a specific timeline, one where your thoughts and expectations become law. You are not stuck in one version of life. You are simply loyal to one pattern of thought. To change your reality, you don't fight circumstances. You adjust your inner architecture. When belief and vision align, you enter flow. Life begins to cooperate with your direction because it's no longer receiving mixed signals. You think it, feel it, act on it, and the world responds. The invisible blueprint becomes a visible experience. Creation stops being mystical and starts becoming mechanical. And that's the essence of the architecture of belief. You are both the designer and the design. The reality you live in today is not a final product, it's a reflection of the patterns you've maintained. Change the pattern, and the structure evolves. Once you learn how belief builds worlds, you no longer live in reaction, you live in creation. Because reality doesn't just happen to you, it happens through you. Your mind is a living program, a system built from experiences, beliefs, emotions, and habits. Every thought you think, every reaction you repeat, runs on an invisible code written long before you became aware of it. This code determines how you interpret life, what you expect from others, and how much you allow yourself to receive. You aren't born with this programming. It's installed by society, family, culture, and survival. To change your life, you must first see the code that's been running it. The invisible code is subtle yet powerful. It hides behind routines, tone of voice, and split-second reactions. When someone compliments you and you instantly deflect it, that's the code. When you dream big but stop yourself with "it's not realistic," that's the code too. It's not conscious choice, it's conditioning. The most effective programming isn't the one you see, it's the one you think is you. Most people live their entire lives inside scripts they didn't write. They follow patterns of fear, loyalty, and imitation without realizing it. The code keeps them safe but small, comfortable but confined. It rewards predictability and punishes disruption. But freedom begins the moment you stop obeying your mental programming and start questioning it. Awareness is the only debugger. Your thoughts are commands, and your subconscious mind executes them with precision. When you say, "I can't do that," your brain doesn't argue, it agrees. The subconscious doesn't care about truth. It only follows patterns. That's why negative beliefs repeat so easily. They're loops in the code that no one interrupted. The system keeps running until you rewrite it consciously. Every belief has an origin. It's a memory that became a rule. Maybe someone once told you that success requires sacrifice, or that love always ends in pain. Those phrases became part of your inner code, shaping how you feel and act. You don't remember when they installed, but their influence never stopped. The first step to freedom is finding where those scripts began and asking whether they still serve who you're becoming. The mind's programming thrives on repetition. Every thought you think strengthens the same neural pathways, making them easier to access. The more often you visit fear, doubt, or guilt, the more automatic they become. That's why awareness must be consistent. It's not about forcing positivity, it's about interrupting autopilot. Reprogramming starts when observation replaces reaction. Your invisible code doesn't only affect how you think, it affects what you notice. The brain filters reality through a system called the reticular activating system, highlighting information that matches your beliefs. If your code says money is hard to earn, your brain will overlook easy opportunities. If it says people can't be trusted, you'll subconsciously prove it true. You see what your code allows. Understanding the code doesn't mean hating it. It was built to protect you. Every limiting belief once served a purpose, to keep you safe from rejection, risk, or failure. But survival isn't living. The same code that shielded you in the past might be the one suffocating your potential now. The key is not to destroy it, but to evolve it. You can't fight the invisible code with willpower alone. Willpower is conscious, the code is subconscious. One operates in words, the other speaks in emotion. That's why your logic says, "I can do this," while your body feels resistance. The code speaks through feeling, not thought. The moment your emotion and belief align, the code begins to rewrite itself. The system learns from consistency, not intensity. You don't need to force massive change overnight. You need to practice new awareness daily. Each time you choose a thought that aligns with your higher reality, you plant a new command in the code. The brain rewires quietly, slowly, permanently. Real transformation doesn't happen in moments of hype. It happens in moments of discipline. The invisible code thrives on identity. It doesn't just tell you what's possible, it tells you who you are. When you say, "I'm not good with money," or I always mess things up. You're not describing yourself, you're defining yourself. The mind obeys identity faster than intention. Change who you believe you are, and the code updates instantly. Every time you react unconsciously, you reinforce the code. Every time you pause and observe, you rewrite it. That's why awareness is the ultimate power. It slows the process long enough for you to choose differently. You begin to see the gap between the thought and the thinker, the program and the programmer. Once you see that difference, you can never unsee it. Reprogramming doesn't mean erasing your past. It means learning from it consciously. The code is like old architecture. You can keep the structure, but you must rebuild the foundation. You start designing beliefs that align with your purpose instead of your fear. You stop being a product of your past and start becoming the engineer of your evolution. Sometimes, the code resists change because it equates the familiar with safety. When things start improving, the subconscious gets uncomfortable, not because growth is wrong, but because it's new. That's why people self-sabotage, just as success approaches. The system isn't evil, it's protective. Awareness reassures it that expansion doesn't mean danger. Your external world reflects your internal code perfectly. Every pattern in relationships, every recurring challenge is a feedback loop. The universe doesn't punish. It mirrors if you keep meeting the same lesson. It's not because life is unfair. It's because the code hasn't been updated. Once you change the input, the reflection shifts. Language is one of the most powerful tools for rewriting. Words carry vibration. Every affirmation, every declaration is a line of code sent to your subconscious. But the words must feel true to activate. Empty affirmations are like commands the system ignores. When you speak from belief, not hope, the subconscious listens and adapts. The invisible code also dictates how you interpret time. If you believe change takes years, it will. If you believe transformation can happen in a single realization, it can. Time bends around belief. That's why breakthroughs often feel sudden. They're not random. They're the moment your internal code finally aligns with your awareness. When you start consciously reprogramming, your environment might resist. People who live on old code feel threatened by those who rewrite theirs. They'll call you unrealistic or detached. But that's not judgment. It's reflection. You're showing them possibilities their code doesn't yet allow. Stay grounded. They're reading an old script. You're writing a new one. Freedom doesn't come from deleting the code. It comes from mastering it. When you understand your mind's programming, you can use it intentionally, setting commands for growth, focus, and calm. You stop reacting to emotion and start instructing it. The same system that once trapped you becomes your greatest tool for creation. You realize the invisible code was never your enemy. It was a mirror of your awareness, a map of how far you've come. Once you understand it, you stop being a character in the system and start being the one who writes it. The code still runs, but now it runs for you, not against you. And that's when the mind stops following reality. It starts building it. Perception is the lens through which you see everything, yet most people mistake the lens for reality itself. What you call truth is often just interpretation, a story shaped by your conditioning, your fears, and your expectations. You think you're seeing the world as it is, but you're really seeing it as you are. The mind writes its script based on perception, and life obediently follows it. Until awareness steps in, you keep living inside a movie you didn't realize you were directing. Your perception decides what's possible. If you perceive a situation as hopeless, your actions shrink to match it. If you see it as an opportunity, your mind starts searching for openings instead of endings. The world outside you doesn't change. Only your angle does. and suddenly everything feels different. Awareness is that shift. It's not adding new scenes to the story. It's realizing you can change the camera. Every thought you hold colors the world around you. Fear sharpens shadows. Gratitude brightens details. You don't see with your eyes, you see through your beliefs. Perception is the projection of what your mind has accepted as normal. When you start to question what normal even means, the walls around your perception begin to dissolve. That's the start of freedom, realizing you can rewrite the story by seeing it differently. The script of perception is automatic until you interrupt it. Your mind creates narratives to simplify life, to make sense of events that otherwise feel chaotic. They're wrong. I always fail. This is just my luck. Those stories are shortcuts for understanding, but they also limit evolution. Awareness isn't about silencing those thoughts. It's about observing them and asking, what if this story isn't true anymore? Awareness doesn't destroy perception. It edits it. It doesn't erase what you've seen. It adds context. Two people can live the same day and walk away with entirely different realities, because perception determines the meaning they attach to it. Awareness is the moment you stop accepting your first interpretation as fact and start exploring deeper possibilities. Your perception is the author of your emotions. The same event that breaks one person strengthens another. It's not the situation, it's the script. If you perceive rejection as failure, it drains you. If you see it as redirection, it frees you. The story you tell yourself after every experience decides whether it becomes trauma or transformation. Awareness rewrites the meaning. When you live unconsciously, you recycle old perceptions. You judge the present using memories of the past. That's why so many people repeat patterns. They're acting from an outdated script. Awareness brings you back to now. It pauses the automatic playback and gives you the choice to respond from clarity instead of memory. That single pause can rewrite years of conditioning. The mind clings to perception because it wants control. It prefers predictability over truth. It labels everything quickly: good, bad, success, failure, so it can move on without thinking. But real power comes from questioning those labels. Awareness gives you the courage to sit in uncertainty and discover that truth isn't fixed, it's fluid. Perception acts like a mirror, but not a perfect one. It reflects your beliefs, your emotional state, and your unhealed wounds. You don't see people as they are. You see them as your past taught you to. When awareness arrives, it clears the fog from that mirror. You begin to recognize projection from reality. You stop blaming and start understanding. Awareness is the mind's editing tool. It lets you step outside the narrative long enough to adjust the tone, pacing, and meaning. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this showing me?" That question alone changes everything. It moves you from victim to creator, from confusion to clarity. Every perception carries momentum. The more often you think a certain way, the more real it feels. If you constantly expect disappointment, your awareness filters for evidence of it. You create a self-fulfilling loop. But once awareness steps in, it interrupts that loop. It allows you to consciously choose a different perception, and with that, a new outcome. Awareness isn't instant perfection. It's gradual evolution. The first time you notice your perception at work, it feels uncomfortable. You start realizing how much of your reality is self-authored, but discomfort is proof of awakening. It means the mind is recognizing its own reflection. Awareness turns unconscious patterns into conscious power. You can't force awareness. You allow it. It grows in stillness, not struggle. The quieter your mind becomes, the more you notice the tone of your thoughts, the origin of your emotions, the subtle triggers that once ruled you. Awareness reveals the mechanics of perception, and in doing so, you reclaim authorship of your experience. The greatest illusion is believing that reality happens outside you. Everything you experience is processed, translated, and defined within. The same words can sound like insult or wisdom depending on your state of awareness. That's why inner clarity is more powerful than external control. You can't change every situation, but you can rewrite how it lands in your mind. When perception controls you, life feels random. When awareness leads, life becomes deliberate. You stop reacting blindly and start shaping outcomes consciously. You begin to see how much of what you called fate was really focus, and how much of what felt accidental was actually alignment. Awareness turns coincidence into choice. Your perception creates your emotional weather. When you believe the world is against you, every cloud feels personal. When you believe life is teaching you, even storms feel purposeful. Awareness doesn't chase the sun. It understands the rain. It knows that growth requires both light and shadow to shape clarity. The rewrite doesn't happen through denial, but through reframing. Awareness doesn't say this didn't hurt. It says this taught me something. It doesn't erase difficulty. It extracts meaning. When perception meets awareness, pain turns into wisdom and confusion becomes direction. That's not spiritual fluff. That's psychological mastery. Over time, awareness becomes your default editor. The stories your mind once wrote in fear are now revised with understanding. You stop creating villains and start recognizing mirrors. Every encounter becomes feedback instead of friction. Awareness doesn't make life easier, it makes it clearer. Perception creates separation. Awareness restores connection. Once you see how every person, event, and challenge reflects your own evolution, judgment fades. You stop needing to be right and start wanting to see. In that seeing, compassion grows. You realize life isn't against you. It's in constant conversation with your consciousness. And that's the truth, hidden behind perception. Reality is not a script you're forced to follow. It's a screenplay you're invited to edit. Awareness is your pen. Every moment offers a chance to rewrite how you see, feel, and respond. The world outside doesn't change first. The story inside does. Once you rewrite perception with awareness, reality has no choice but to follow your lead. Control is one of the most convincing illusions the human mind ever built. It promises safety, predictability, and certainty, yet it delivers exhaustion, anxiety, and disappointment. You try to manage every outcome, plan every step, and predict every turn, believing that control equals peace. But peace never comes from force. It comes from trust, something control can never teach you. The harder you grip life, the faster it slips through your fingers. The illusion of control is seductive because it gives the ego a sense of power. You think if you can just organize enough, plan enough, or anticipate enough, you can outsmart uncertainty. But uncertainty isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. Life doesn't need your permission to unfold. It only needs your awareness to understand it. Control is fear disguised as strategy, and it keeps you stuck in survival instead of creation. You don't control people. You influence them. You don't control outcomes. You align with them. You don't control life. You cooperate with its flow. The moment you stop trying to micromanage the universe, you begin to see patterns that control once blinded you to. True freedom doesn't come from mastering everything. It comes from mastering yourself within everything. The need to control is rooted in fear of loss. You cling to situations, people, and plans because you've mistaken attachment for security. But the more you hold on, the more you suffer. Life moves in cycles, not straight lines. Control resists change, while awareness adapts to it. When you learn to let things move naturally, you realize you were never losing control, you were releasing resistance. The ego loves control because it fears vulnerability. It wants guarantees before commitment, answers before risk. But life doesn't reward that mindset. The greatest opportunities often arrive unplanned. The deepest connections appear without schedule, and the biggest growth happens without warning. Control limits what you allow, while surrender opens what you never imagined possible. When you try to control everything, you narrow your perspective. You start focusing on fixing problems instead of creating solutions. You become reactive instead of intuitive. Control doesn't prevent chaos, it multiplies it. The mind gets tangled in what-ifs, forgetting that clarity only exists in the present. The more you fight for control, the more control starts fighting you. The illusion of control makes you believe you can avoid pain if you plan well enough. But pain is not a punishment, it's a process. It's how awareness expands. Control tries to skip lessons. Awareness learns them. Every struggle you've tried to control was actually guiding you towards strength, not away from it. You don't grow when things go according to plan. You grow when they force you to let go. Control thrives in perfectionism. It whispers that if you can make everything flawless, you'll finally feel at peace. But perfection is just control wearing a prettier mask. You polish, fix, and overthink until life loses its spontaneity. The truth is, beauty comes from imperfection, from the rawness, the mistakes, the moments that control would have edited out. The most powerful people aren't the ones who control everything. They're the ones who know when to release. Surrender isn't giving up. It's stepping aside to let life do its part. It's recognizing that timing, not force, is the true mechanism of creation. When you align your effort with trust, things begin to flow in ways that control could never orchestrate. The need for control disconnects you from your intuition. You start trusting logic over instinct, plans over presence. But intuition doesn't operate under control. It speaks through stillness. It whispers the right move when you're calm enough to listen. When you let go, you don't lose direction. You gain clarity. The next step reveals itself when the noise of control quiets down. People chase control because unpredictability scares them. But unpredictability is what keeps life alive. Without it, existence would become mechanical, a repetition of known outcomes. Control may feel safe, but it kills wonder. Awareness embraces the unknown and turns it into discovery. You can't evolve in a reality where everything is already decided. Breaking the illusion of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop forcing. You still take action, plan, and prepare, but from a place of alignment, not fear. Control says, I must make this happen. Awareness says, I'll do my best and allow it to unfold. The difference is energy. One drains you, the other expands you. The mind that craves control struggles with trust. It wants evidence before belief, certainty before peace. But trust is a paradox. It grows only when you let go of the need to know. The universe rewards movement, not manipulation. When you take aligned action and release expectation, you enter flow, that effortless space where things seem to click without effort. Life doesn't need you to predict it. It needs you to participate in it. When you let go of control, you make space for synchronicity. Those coincidences that only happen when you're aligned with timing. Control blocks miracles because it leaves no room for surprise. Awareness, on the other hand, is an invitation for magic to occur in ways the logical mind can't plan. Control keeps you in the illusion of separation. You versus life, you versus others, you versus time. But there is no versus, there is only interaction. The more you fight to manage everything, the more you disconnect from the natural intelligence of existence. Awareness reconnects you, reminding you that life is not against you, it's responding to you. When you begin releasing control, fear will try to pull you back. It will tell you that letting go means losing stability. But in truth, letting go is how you find it. The moment you stop gripping, your energy balances. You stop chasing outcomes and start aligning with possibilities. What you once tried to control begins to move effortlessly toward you. The illusion of control thrives in the future. It feeds on what if and what's next. Awareness lives in the now. It doesn't try to predict outcomes. It experiences them as they come. Control builds walls around life. Awareness builds bridges through it. You stop worrying about what could go wrong and start trusting your ability to handle what does. Every attempt to control comes from a misunderstanding of power. Power isn't domination, it's direction. Control uses force. Awareness uses influence. When you shift from needing to dominate life to collaborating with it, things begin to work in your favor. Breaking the illusion of control is not a single decision, it's a daily practice. Each time you breathe through discomfort instead of overthinking, you weaken control's grip. Each time you trust timing over tension, you strengthen awareness. The balance between effort and surrender becomes your new state of mastery. You realize that control was never real, only fear pretending to protect you. You don't need to manage life to create it. You just need to stay awake enough to participate fully. The mind that stops fighting for control starts flowing with intelligence far greater than itself. That's not giving up, that's growing up. Because true control isn't holding on, it's knowing when to let go. Every thought you have sends out a frequency, an invisible signal that shapes how life responds to you. Most people assume thoughts are private, harmless patterns running through the mind, but they are powerful vibrations that communicate directly with your reality. Your energy broadcasts louder than your words ever could. You don't attract what you think you want, you attract what you think consistently. Thoughts are not emotions, they are electrical commands, shaping the field around you. When you think of a thought as just a feeling, you disconnect from its power. Feelings fluctuate, they come and go. But thoughts are tuning forks that stabilize emotion into vibration. A single belief repeated enough becomes magnetic. It draws experiences that align with its signal. This is why people with similar energy find each other, and why repeated negative thinking doesn't just create bad moods, it creates bad cycles. Every mind is a transmitter. The frequencies you emit don't stay contained within you, they move outward, influencing interactions, opportunities, and outcomes. You can sense this truth when you meet someone whose energy feels heavy or inspiring without a word being spoken. You're not just perceiving mood, you're reading frequency. Awareness of your thoughts is awareness of your broadcast. Emotion gives thought momentum, but thought sets direction. When your emotions run wild without conscious thought, energy scatters. When thought leads with clarity, emotion follows with purpose. The reason visualization works is not mystical, it's electrical. The brain doesn't distinguish between imagined experience and real one. It tunes the body's energy to whatever it pictures most. Each thought carries a frequency, and each frequency has a destination. When your mind is dominated by fear, you start to resonate with situations that confirm it. When you think in gratitude and expansion, the same energy echoes back opportunities that match. The world is not punishing or rewarding you, it's mirroring your most persistent vibration. The power of thought lies not in intensity, but in consistency. One moment of optimism won't change your life, but steady alignment with empowering ideas will. The more you repeat a thought, the more you tune your frequency. The mind learns through rhythm. Over time, what you once had to think consciously becomes automatic energy, a permanent signal of who you've become. Your brain is an electromagnetic system. Every neuron fires tiny electrical impulses that ripple through your body and into your environment. Science calls it resonance. Spirituality calls it manifestation. But both describe the same truth. The mind is not confined to the skull. It extends outward through the energy it emits, shaping the invisible architecture of your experiences. Feelings respond to energy. Thoughts create it. This is why regulating thoughts is more powerful than controlling emotions. When your inner dialogue becomes intentional, your emotional landscape stabilizes. Thoughts are the cause, emotions are the echo. Most people try to fix their feelings without addressing the frequency producing them. Awareness reverses that. You change the signal, and the echo transforms. The reason change feels hard isn't that it's difficult, it's that your frequency is loyal to your past. You keep thinking from the vibration of what you've known instead of what you want to become. Your subconscious doesn't understand future or past, it understands repetition. That's why true transformation begins when you repeatedly think from the version of yourself you're growing into. Frequencies don't lie. You can say you're confident, but if your thoughts still vibrate with doubt, life will mirror hesitation. You can declare abundance, but if your inner story is scarcity, opportunities won't stick. The energy of your thoughts always reveals the truth beneath your words. That's not punishment, it's precision. The universe doesn't hear what you say, it hears what you think with emotion. Thoughts have weight. When your frequency is low, filled with resentment, blame, or fear, even simple actions feel heavy. When your thoughts are high, grounded in trust, gratitude, and vision, effort becomes flow. This isn't magic, it's mechanics. Frequency determines friction. When you align your thoughts with clarity, you stop fighting energy and start surfing it. The difference between overthinking and awareness is vibration. Overthinking spirals in anxiety. Awareness vibrates in observation. You can think a lot without lowering your frequency, as long as the thoughts are directed, not scattered. The quality of your inner conversation determines whether your energy builds momentum or burns out in loops. Every great creation starts with a frequency, not a plan. Visionaries think in energy before action. They imagine vividly, feel intentionally, and align mentally before the world ever sees results. That's why their ideas spread like wildfire. People don't respond to their effort, they respond to their frequency. Energy is contagious, and thought is its purest carrier. When you shift your frequency, you shift your environment. The people, places, and opportunities that no longer resonate will begin to fade. Not because something went wrong, but because your energy outgrew them. It's not rejection, it's recalibration. Life always matches your signal. That's how the universe maintains balance, by synchronizing vibration to vibration. Awareness of frequency doesn't mean forcing positivity. It means recognizing alignment. Sometimes the highest frequency isn't joy, it's peace. It's the calm stability of a mind that no longer reacts to chaos. When you reach that space, your thoughts become precise instruments, not emotional noise. The clearer the signal, the stronger the creation. When two conflicting thoughts coexist, energy splits. You might think abundance while fearing loss, or imagine success while doubting timing. That dual vibration confuses reality. The signal becomes static. Awareness unifies your focus. It aligns your thoughts so your frequency sends one clear message: certainty. The more coherent your energy, the faster life organizes around it. Your thoughts also tune your body. Low-frequency thinking manifests as fatigue, tension, and restlessness. High-frequency thoughts manifest as vitality and ease. The body listens to the vibration of the mind. It's not just psychological, it's biological. The nervous system responds directly to mental tone. When you think peace, you train your biology to match calm. Every time you shift from worry to trust, you recalibrate your frequency. That one mental pivot creates ripples larger than any external action. Life doesn't change when circumstances move. It changes when your energy does. The invisible adjustment of thought is what makes visible transformation inevitable. You begin to notice that everything is frequency. Conversation, silence, thought, intention. You stop trying to fix the outside and start tuning the inside. You stop asking, "Why isn't it working?" and start asking, "What am I broadcasting?" The answers come not in words, but in resonance. When life begins to sound like your awareness, you realize thoughts were never just ideas floating in your head. They were signals shaping your world in real time. Every emotion you've ever felt, every event you've ever drawn in, was a reflection of the vibration you carried. Once you understand this, you stop chasing energy and start generating it. Because reality doesn't just respond to effort, it responds to frequency. Most people live in reaction. They move through life responding to events, emotions, and other people's expectations without realizing they've surrendered their creative power. Every argument, every fear, every overthinking moment is the mind reacting to something external. But creation begins when you reclaim your energy from reaction, when you stop letting circumstances dictate your state and start designing it from within. That's the true shift from unconscious response to conscious creation. Reaction is the default setting of survival. It's the mind's way of staying alert, defending, and protecting. But protection isn't evolution. When your focus is always on what's happening to you, you forget that reality also happens through you. The reactive mind looks for threats. The creative mind looks for direction. One repeats patterns, the other builds new worlds. The moment you pause before reacting, you create space. And in that space, awareness enters. Reaction collapses time. Creation expands it. You stop being a character, trapped in the scene, and become the director choosing how it unfolds. That tiny gap between stimulus and response is where every transformation begins. The more you practice awareness in that gap, the more reality starts responding to your intention instead of your emotion. The reactive mind needs validation. The creative mind needs vision. When you operate from reaction, you spend energy managing perception, what others think, what they say, how they see you. But when you shift to creation, your attention moves from fear of judgment to clarity of purpose. You stop trying to fit into narratives and start writing your own. Reaction feeds chaos because it mirrors chaos. The world throws noise at you, and the reactive mind echoes it back. Creation breaks that pattern. It doesn't mimic what it sees. It invents what it needs. You begin to respond with design, not defense. Your energy stops leaking into emotional battles and starts building momentum toward what actually matters. Creation requires stillness. Reaction feeds on speed, the urge to answer, defend, explain. Stillness interrupts that pattern. In silence, the mind stops reacting and starts observing. It begins to see what's actually happening instead of what it fears might happen. Creation needs clarity, and clarity can't exist in a storm of reaction. When you react, emotion leads. When you create, awareness leads. Emotions are powerful tools, but terrible masters. They color perception, distort truth, and drive you to impulsive choices. Awareness, however, uses emotion as data. It reads it, decodes it, and then chooses action consciously. That's how you transform instinct into intelligence. Every time you catch yourself reacting, you're witnessing your old programming. It's the mind replaying an outdated pattern that once kept you safe. But awareness allows you to update that code. Instead of fighting the reaction, you study it. You ask, what belief made me respond this way? That question alone moves you from survival to strategy. Creation isn't about controlling life. It's about co-creating with it. When you align your energy, instead of resisting events, life starts working with you, not against you. You begin noticing opportunities that reaction would have blinded you to. The more aligned you are, the less you need to force outcomes. Creation flows where control fails. The reactive mind thrives on past and future, replaying what went wrong or worrying about what could. The creative mind lives in the present. It uses the now as raw material for new possibilities. That's why presence feels powerful. It's the only place where creation can actually occur. You can't design your future from panic. You design it from presence. When you live in reaction, your energy is borrowed. Every mood, every thought, every choice depends on what someone else did or didn't do. But when you create, your energy becomes original. You act from intention, not influence. You stop echoing the world and start composing it. Independence begins where reactivity ends. Reaction drains, creation renews. Reacting burns energy in conflict. Creating multiplies energy through flow. That's why creative people seem endlessly fueled. They're not running on emotion, they're running on alignment. They've learned that inspiration isn't luck. It's a byproduct of consistent focus unclouded by reaction. Every reaction delays your evolution because it keeps you looping inside the same emotional frequency. You attract the same situations until you learn not to react to them. The moment you do, the pattern dissolves. Life no longer needs to repeat the lesson. Creation replaces reaction by choosing awareness over impulse. That's how you graduate from cycles. Creation doesn't mean ignoring emotion. It means mastering it. The creative mind feels deeply but doesn't drown. It channels emotion into art, purpose, and progress. Reaction wastes energy on expression without direction. Creation turns energy into transformation. You stop needing to be understood because you start understanding yourself. When you stop reacting, people notice. You become calmer, clearer, less predictable. You stop feeding the chaos that used to define you. Others might misread your stillness as indifference, but that's their reaction, not your reality. You're no longer moved by every vibration around you. You're setting your own. Creation starts with vision. Not from the world you see, but from the world you want to experience. How you begin to speak, think, and act from that vision until it solidifies. Reaction collapses vision into memory. Creation expands it into manifestation. You learn that imagination isn't fantasy. It's the blueprint for future reality. Awareness is the bridge between reaction and creation. It observes the emotion, but doesn't become it. It allows you to recognize when you're slipping back into the old program. The more self-aware you are, the less you react, and the less you react, the faster you evolve. Awareness is not passive. It's power disguised as calm. Creation is the art of emotional redirection. Instead of wasting energy defending your position, you use it to design solutions. Instead of replaying hurt, you rebuild purpose. That's how creators thrive, where reactors suffer. They don't need perfect conditions. They create momentum from presence. Over time, the shift becomes natural. What once triggered reaction now triggers reflection. What once felt like chaos now feels like data. The external world stops dictating your frequency because your inner world starts leading it. You realize that peace was never the absence of problems, it was the presence of creative awareness. You stop reacting altogether, not because life got easier, but because you finally understood how powerful creation really is. The same mind that once burned energy in fear now channels it into building. The same heart that once defended now directs. You've stopped being a responder to life and become its designer. That's the moment awareness turns into mastery, when you no longer react to the world because you've learned how to create it. Awareness begins as observation, but eventually it becomes existence itself. At first you practice noticing your thoughts, your emotions, the constant noise of reaction. But over time, the noticing deepens. You stop watching life from the surface and start seeing through it. The illusion of separation fades, and you realize you were never inside your thoughts. Your thoughts were inside you. That's the turning point, when awareness stops being a tool and becomes your state of being. When awareness becomes reality, everything slows down, not because time changes, but because you stop rushing. You begin to notice the subtleties between moments, the space between words, the energy between people. What once felt ordinary starts feeling alive. The same world looks different because you're finally seeing it without filters, projections, or judgment. Reality becomes less of a story and more of a direct experience. Awareness is the mind's awakening from automation. You no longer live by reaction, fear, or programming. You start recognizing patterns before they pull you in. The emotion still arises, but it doesn't rule you. The thought still appears, but it doesn't define you. You start moving through life as the observer rather than the actor, and that simple shift changes everything. The more aware you become, the quieter your mind grows. It's not that thoughts disappear. They lose authority. They pass like clouds instead of storms. Awareness doesn't suppress thought. It transcends it. You learn that you don't need to control your mind. You just need to witness it. And in that witnessing, control becomes irrelevant because clarity replaces chaos. When awareness takes root, conflict starts dissolving. Not because life stops challenging you, but because your perception of challenge changes. You begin to understand that every moment, even the painful ones, serves a purpose in expanding your consciousness. Resistance fades into understanding. Life stops feeling like something happening to you and starts feeling like something happening through you. Awareness transforms relationships in ways words can't explain. You stop hearing only what people say and start sensing what they mean. You recognize their pain behind their behavior, their conditioning behind their reactions. Empathy becomes effortless because judgment no longer blocks connection. Awareness turns every interaction into a mirror for growth. The most profound change awareness brings is neutrality. You stop labeling experiences as good or bad. You see them as information, feedback from the universe about your inner state. This neutrality doesn't make you detached. It makes you wise. You can experience pain without drowning in it, joy without clinging to it, and love without fear of loss. That balance is the signature of awakened perception. When awareness becomes the new reality, you stop chasing meaning and start living it. Every ordinary task, breathing, walking, speaking, feels infused with presence. You no longer look for enlightenment as a destination because you realize it's already here, woven into every conscious moment. The mind that once sought answers now simply experiences truth directly. Awareness changes your relationship with time. You begin to experience moments more deeply instead of counting them. The past loses its grip, the future loses its weight, and the present becomes infinite. In that timelessness, creativity flows effortlessly. You stop trying to make things happen and start allowing them to unfold in perfect rhythm. Your energy shifts from force to flow. You no longer struggle to maintain balance, because awareness is balance. You feel grounded, even in uncertainty. The storms of life still come, but they can't uproot you anymore. Awareness becomes the anchor that keeps your peace intact, no matter how wild the waves get. The ego can't survive sustained awareness. It thrives in distraction and drama, but in presence, it dissolves. You stop needing to be right, validated, or superior. You don't shrink to please others, nor inflate to impress them. You simply are. That authenticity draws power back to its rightful source, your consciousness. With awareness, life no longer feels like a competition. You stop measuring progress in comparison to others. Growth becomes internal, silent, and deeply satisfying. You begin valuing peace over performance, depth over attention. You understand that awareness doesn't seek recognition. It radiates fulfillment naturally. Awareness heightens your intuition. You begin to sense alignment before logic can explain it. You start trusting your energy over evidence. What once felt like coincidence now feels like communication, life speaking in patterns, timing, and emotion. Awareness makes you fluent in the language of synchronicity. When you live in awareness, fear loses its disguise. You see it not as danger, but as resistance to expansion. Fear stops being an obstacle and starts being an invitation, a signal pointing toward where your growth is waiting. Awareness doesn't fight fear. It sees through it, dissolving it into understanding. The external world still moves the same, but your inner world operates differently. Noise no longer disturbs, it passes through silence. Problems no longer paralyze, they trigger insight. You stop needing to escape your mind because your mind stops being a prison. Awareness turns it into a vast open space where everything has room to breathe. When awareness is your baseline, gratitude becomes effortless. You don't need life to be perfect to feel thankful. Awareness makes perfection irrelevant. You see beauty in impermanence, wisdom in contrast, and growth in discomfort. Every moment becomes an offering, a reflection of consciousness exploring itself. As awareness deepens, manifestation changes. You no longer try to attract things to complete you. You attract from completeness. Creation becomes effortless because you no longer operate from lack. You think, feel, and act in harmony, and reality aligns accordingly. Awareness stops chasing outcomes because it already lives in fulfillment. Awareness stops feeling like something you practice and starts feeling like who you are. You move, speak, and create from a place of knowing rather than seeking. The separation between inner and outer disappears. What happens within is mirrored without. Reality no longer feels random. It feels precise, intelligent, alive. The shift into awareness doesn't make you immune to life. It makes you intimate with it. You feel everything more deeply, but suffer less from it. You stop trying to escape pain and instead see its purpose. Awareness doesn't protect you from the world. It connects you to it in its rawest, most beautiful form. You realize that awareness was never something to gain. It was what you always were before the noise of conditioning buried it. The journey was never about becoming aware. It was about remembering awareness itself. When that remembrance becomes constant, life stops being a search for meaning and becomes meaning in motion. That's when awareness truly becomes the new reality, not an idea, but the essence of existence itself. Mastery doesn't begin with controlling the world, it begins with understanding the one within. The mind is the blueprint of everything you experience. Every event, every relationship, every outcome mirrors how your mind perceives and processes life. You don't change reality by fighting it. You change it by elevating the consciousness interpreting it. The moment you master your internal world, the external one starts reorganizing itself to match your vibration. The untrained mind reacts, resists, and repeats. It blames the outside for what it refuses to face inside. But the mastered mind observes, aligns, and creates. It no longer needs to control what happens. It shapes how it responds. That subtle shift rewrites everything. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become the architect of perception. And when perception changes, reality follows. To master the mind is to become aware of its nature, restless, curious, and endlessly creating. It's not about silencing thoughts, it's about directing them. Thoughts will always appear, but mastery lies in choosing which ones deserve your energy. When you stop feeding noise, clarity becomes effortless. A calm mind doesn't mean no movement, it means movement with purpose. The mind is a tool, but most people let the tool use them. It was meant to serve consciousness, not dominate it. When the mind becomes master, chaos rules. When awareness leads, order returns. The shift happens the moment you stop identifying with the voice in your head and start witnessing it. That's when the chatter loses its grip and peace takes command. Reality mirrors the state of your mind, like water reflects the sky. A disturbed surface can't show a clear reflection. When you calm the inner waters, the outer world becomes coherent. People, timing, and opportunities align effortlessly. It's not coincidence, it's resonance. The world rearranges itself to match the frequency of your focus. The world you see isn't objective, it's psychological. Everything that triggers, excites, or frightens you reveals what the mind still holds on to. When you master awareness, triggers become teachers. They stop defining you and start refining you. You no longer run from discomfort. You study it until it turns into understanding. Mastery begins with observation. The untrained mind reacts instantly, but the aware mind pauses. In that pause lies infinite potential. You start choosing your thoughts the way an artist chooses colors, with intention, not impulse. That's how creation replaces chaos. The more conscious your selection, the more beautiful your reality becomes. Discipline is the language of mastery. You can't expect a mind that's been fed distraction to suddenly speak focus. Training takes patience, moments of redirection, hours of practice, days of mindfulness. The mind is like a muscle. It strengthens through repetition. Each time you bring it back from fear, it learns loyalty to peace. When you master your thoughts, emotion follows naturally. Emotion is the body's response to the mind's command. A mastered mind doesn't suppress feeling. It harmonizes it. You begin to experience emotion without becoming it. That detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you stable. You can feel deeply and still move wisely. The secret to mental mastery is simplicity. Complexity feeds confusion. Simplicity breeds control. You don't need to manage every thought. You need to master your awareness of them. The more attention you give to peace, the faster chaos dissolves. The mind is programmable, and focus is its language. What you repeat becomes what you believe. When awareness governs thought, even challenges become creative fuel. You stop labeling experiences as failure or success. You see them as feedback. Every obstacle becomes data for self-improvement. Mastery transforms struggle into strategy. You no longer need the world to be easy because your mind is powerful enough to adapt. The mastered mind sees time differently. It stops rushing toward the future or replaying the past. It lives in rhythm with the present, the only place where power exists. That presence sharpens intuition. You begin making choices not from fear of missing out, but from certainty of alignment. Time bends to those who live consciously within it. The mind's greatest trick is convincing you that peace requires perfection. But mastery proves the opposite. Peace is available now, in chaos, in imperfection, in movement. The moment you stop resisting what is, the mind stops fighting itself. Acceptance doesn't mean surrender. It means strength through awareness. When you master your inner world, resistance outside starts dissolving. People treat you differently. Not because they've changed, but because your energy has. Environments that once drained you lose their power. You no longer bend to the noise of others because your frequency has become its own anchor. That's not arrogance, it's equilibrium. Mastering the mind doesn't mean you never fall. It means you fall consciously. You see your triggers in real time, feel the emotion, and return to awareness quicker each time. Growth stops being dramatic and becomes deliberate. You no longer need to heal endlessly. You begin to operate from healed awareness. A mastered mind doesn't chase. It attracts. It doesn't panic. It plans. It doesn't react. It refines. This balance between focus and flow is what turns ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. You begin to move strategically through life rather than emotionally through struggle. That is the quiet power of mental mastery. Control fades where clarity grows. You stop trying to force the world into alignment because you realize it already reflects your inner state. The external world isn't rebuilt through manipulation. It rebuilds itself through coherence. When your mind stops contradicting your heart, reality reorganizes with precision. True mastery feels effortless. It's not domination, it's direction. It's the confidence that comes from knowing nothing outside you determines your peace. You no longer seek control because you've found command over thought, focus, and energy. From that command, life flows as if it's following silent instruction. Mastery becomes identity. You don't practice awareness. You are awareness. The mind becomes an instrument tuned to clarity. Every thought you release, every emotion you refine, adds precision to the frequency you live in. The world mirrors that tone in everything it offers back. The moment arrives when you no longer try to change the world, because the world has already changed through you. Mastering the mind doesn't just elevate perception, it transforms creation itself. You see that life was never against you. It was always waiting for you to think clearly enough to build it anew. Once the mind is mastered, reality simply follows its lead. Reality was never something you found. It was something you were shaping all along. Every thought, every moment of awareness, every quiet decision to stay centered in chaos has been building this new version of you. You've learned that the mind isn't just an observer of life, it's the blueprint that draws it. Once that truth becomes real, the world stops being random and starts becoming responsive. You've peeled away the layers of programming, conditioning, and doubt that once dictated your direction. You've replaced reaction with creation, confusion with clarity, and fear with focus. The same mind that once chased answers now generates them. You no longer need to prove your power, you simply live it. The transformation isn't dramatic, it's deliberate. It's awareness turning into authorship. The moment you understand how your inner world writes the outer one, control stops being a struggle and starts being a choice. Life doesn't bend because you force it, it shifts because you've become aligned with it. You've turned your thoughts into frequencies, your emotions into fuel, and your awareness into design. Now, the journey ahead isn't about searching for meaning. It's about building with intention. You are no longer a character lost in someone else's script. You are the one holding the pen. The mind that once tried to survive reality now knows how to create it. That is the quiet power of consciousness, not to escape the world, but to rebuild it from the inside out. So as this chapter ends, remember this: reality doesn't change because you wish it to. It changes because you see it differently. Awareness was never the destination, it was the foundation. You are not waiting for life to make sense anymore. You are the one giving it structure, color, and direction. Because once you master the mind, reality no longer happens to you, it happens through you.